Hello and welcome to episode 3 of Misplated. Today we're in Islington, London. Yes, still trying to keep it local to London. And we're going to meet with Dara Klein at Tria at the Compton Arms, which is just here behind me. I'm really excited to meet her. She has got Apulian roots. Her mom is from Puglia, even though she's from a different part of the region. It's the same region where I'm from, but it's a different part. So her cooking is definitely very inspired by her mom's cooking, but also she grew up in New Zealand. So she has like very diverse background, and I'm really interested to speak to her about sort of what her approach is to Apulian food. And I'm also very interested in talking a little bit more about what it's like for her to serve Italian food in a pub, like a British pub, of course, like this one here. This is a historic pub here in Islington. I don't live in this neighborhood, so I don't really know, but but just by looking it up, it does really look like sort of the heart of the neighborhood, and the fact that she's serving like food that's very dear to her in a place like this, that must mean something to her. So I'm really excited to talk to her and just get to know her a little bit more. And yes, she's going to be making Ciceri and Tria, which is basically pasta with chickpeas from Salento. Is a part of Puglia, the region where we're both from, but not the part where I'm from. So again, very excited to learn more about my region in this sort of different setting from her here in Islington in a pub. That's so wonderful. It's such a such a random way, but I think it's definitely the best way to get to know about one's own roots. So yeah, let's get in. Let's go meet her. Hello.
Ciao.
Ciao. Thank you so much for having me today. It's a true pleasure. Right, so what we're gonna make today? I see you've got some stuff ready.
Yeah. Today we're going to make Ciceri e Tria, which is a very typical pasta dish from Salento in Puglia, which is the region where my mum comes from. So,
Where is she from?
well, she was born in Morciano di Leuca. She grew up between there, Santa Maria di Leuca and Lecce.
Oh, horrible place. Honestly.
Horrible,
My
terrible,
God.
terrible. But then my nonna and my aunties were based in Mandia for a long time. So always around that region of Puglia.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it's a dish which is made with what I like to say braised chickpeas. I use semolina tagliatelle without any egg, so typically very pugliese. And then it is topped off and tossed through with fried pasta as well.
Wow.
So it's very much a dish which is textural. You have the chickpeas, which are both sort of soft and saucy and a little bit brothy as well, depending on how you make the dish. Then you have the pasta, which is like chewy and bouncy, and then the fried pasta, which is crispy and delicious.
Oh wow, exciting!
yeah.
I'm really excited as well. To be bringing in some food from Puglia, but from another part, because I'm from Bari.
Okay, yeah.
Even though my parents are not from Bari, but I grew up with certain dishes. Not this one. I don't think I ever had it like that.
Well, yeah, because Bari's further north. I think Ciceri is very typically Salentina.
Yeah,
I think. I might be wrong.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's just very exciting. I was saying earlier in the intro to like discover food from where I come from, but in this way here.
Yeah.
Like I don't know how about you, because I feel like I've lived abroad for a long time, and all the best sort of what people would call authentic foods, like local food, it's always that I've discovered, it's always been from just like random place across the road, in London or in just a...
Well, we're very lucky in London because you've got, I think I was reading this the other day, there's basically the equivalent of the number of young Italians in London as there is in like maybe Florence. It was like 306, it was thousands and thousands. So there's a big community.
A bit the south this way. They say, I think it's the 13th city in Italy, so That's huge.
Yeah.
So, all right, let's talk a little bit more about you. Yeah, you were saying your mom is from Salento. How about your dad?
My dad he's not Italian. He is from New Jersey. His background is like Ashkenazi Jewish. It's a very, very different culinary history. I was born just outside of Bologna in Reggio Emilia, Correggio, and I grew up in San Giovanni in Persiceto, which is a very, very small town, about 40 minutes northeast of Bologna. Actually, if you want the best restaurant for cucina of Emilia, it's really in this village. It's called Osteria del Mirasole. It's amazing. Anyways, when I was 6, we moved to New Zealand, which is why I sound like this.
I love the accent.
Yeah.
It's
People always get confused if I say, "Oh yeah, I'm half Italian, half American," and they're like, "Whoa, what's going on?"
do you find, I don't know, like, do you find, because I think that's very true for me, like, do you think your accent has maybe in some way sometimes helped you, or some other ways kind of come between what you wanted to do?
It's been an interesting one. I think, I was 6, well, I was about to turn 7 when we moved to New Zealand, and we had, I grew up in New Zealand with a very strong sense of kind of Italian identity. My parents opened a trattoria a couple years after we had been in New Zealand. So my life, even though it was in New Zealand, it was very much through an Italian lens. So I felt always very Italian. And then I was 14 when we first went back to San Giovanni in Persiceto. And when I left Italy, I had a proper dialect from that region. I could not speak English. I had a really, really thick accent of Emilia Romagna. And then obviously you're young, you pick up English very quickly, and I lost the accent when I went back to Italy. Everyone was like, "Oh yeah, you're Kiwi, you're from New Zealand." And when you're a young person, that's very, it puts you in a few different places. So I started going through something of I wouldn't say identity crisis, but just an evolution with my own understanding of cultural identity.
Yeah.
And then.
So when's the first time you felt that you were a Kiwi? Have you ever felt?
If I'm honest, not really. I feel very, very blessed that I grew up there. I feel really lucky that I was able to experience a very different culture, and I think there is definitely parts of me that culturally are very Kiwi. I'm relatively relaxed. I mean, some people might not say that. I think I am. It was a really interesting, different global perspective to receive as a young person. I'm just going to start frying this pasta.
Go for it. Yeah.
This is my tagliatelle that we make here at the pub. Very much based on how my mum taught me to make pasta. I say taught because she never taught me anything. I just watched. Especially in her restaurant. I was always there, but she wasn't saying, "Oh, Dara, this is what we do. This is how you make it." You always just observe. So a lot of my cooking, even though it's drawn from my mother's cooking, it's not something that she explicitly sort of taught me.
It's like little things you noticed that you wanted to recreate.
Yeah.
You just, you're frying it like chips. Yeah.
You literally fry it like chips.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting because the texture that comes from it is really surprising. And sometimes when I've had this dish on the menu, and I have maybe some extra fried pasta left over, I put it on a plate with salumi, with pickles, whatever, and people are really surprised to find out that it's pasta. So you'll see that it'll come to the surface.
Yeah.
And you just get your tongs in there and make sure they loosen up. But I felt very lucky growing up in New Zealand. It was a really beautiful place to live. But I always missed Italy. And my older sister, when I was 14, she moved back to Bologna. and she studied there. She's still there. So
Yeah. What's your like? Did you, because you were away from Italy for a long time, and then you came back as, you know, a little bit more grown up.
Yeah.
You could say. Did you notice anything different, or like, I don't know, something that sort of maybe disappointed you, something that you realized it was like you were living through an idealized version of, or something that surprised you?
Yeah,
in positive?
I've always been aware of that notion that I am thinking of Italy through this idealized, romantic, almost childlike perspective, because I was so young when I left. However, my parents were always very honest with the reasons why we left. They always talked about the bureaucracy, the politics, the economic situation. When I was in my early 20s, after I graduated from university, I wanted to move to Italy, and it was actually my sister who said, no, don't come here. You know, it's really, really difficult. And that's something that I've always noticed, especially living in London, where there's so many young Italians. Obviously, working in a restaurant, you meet lots of young Italians. A lot of them are in hospitality. And they all kind of tell you the same thing, you know, like the economy's a mess. Yeah, it's beautiful to live, but it's almost impossible to find work. And that's always been heartbreaking, because I would love nothing more than to open Tria somewhere in Italy. I really would. But it just seems like there's so many really impossible kind of social obstacles in the way.
So has that sort of shaped your, maybe that's a broad question, but like, how has that, you think, shaped your cooking? Like the fact that you wanted to go but you couldn't go, so like, do you find maybe you try to get closer by cooking more Italian food?
Definitely. Yeah, I think my cooking has always been a like practice of memory, and like linking myself to my mum, my heritage. Yeah, it's like a portal for me to connect with my history. But it's also just, it's really the only thing that I know. So I should have mentioned, I knew when to stop frying, because all of the bubbles in the oil had sort of stopped forming. So usually when you're frying, obviously color is a big thing that you're looking for. The pasta started to get really nice and golden, but I also just could tell that it was ready to go. There was no bubbles. So you just make sure you drain it really well, and get it onto some tissue paper like this. And then while it's still hot, I always season it just with, I like to use sea salt a lot in my cooking, but then when coating freshly fried food, you want it to be fine salt, because that sticks to the food really well. So
I just noticed how you went from like sort of romantic, you know, romantic storyteller to precise, like precise, you know, like giving out the rules and like what's happening. So like, how, like, you know, you said a lot of your cooking was like was coming from the memory and like just like trying to feel at home. Like how, you know, when you had to introduce rules and maybe like stick to some, like how was that for you? Like,
so obviously from when I was 7 until 18, my parents had their business. My mum was the head chef, and she was really tough. She was a tough head chef. So I always grew up with observing decisive action in a kitchen, and it really put me off it. I never ever wanted to be a chef. I actually went to university for creative writing and film, and I always worked front of house, never ever wanted to cook. I really wanted to pursue acting. Then life kind of took me on its own little path. I worked in offices for about 5 years. That was when I needed some like routine and stability in my life, and I ended up doing like admin, marketing, social media jobs. Then I what year was it? It was 2018, and my mama and I were finally living in the same city in Auckland after being apart for about 5-6 years. And she was semi-retired at the stage. And I told her, because we always cooked together, and I said, let's do a pop-up. Because she needed some income, and I was really bored with my advertising job. And we held a pop-up together, and that was April 2018. We did 5 courses of pugliese food inside a really beautiful home. From there, we did more and more catering. I was still working as a social media manager, really bored out of my mind, thinking like, this can't be my life, like this can't be what I'm doing. And basically, Mum and I were doing some catering on the side. I knew I was going to be moving to London to meet my boyfriend who had moved over here from New Zealand. I sort of told myself, I was like, what am I going to do when I get to London? Like, get another temp job, be miserable, be wondering what it would be like to be a chef and not actually do it. And I said, you know what, screw it. Like, I'm going to do it for 5 years. If I hate it, I will know, and I've done it, and I won't have any questions. I got here, and I started and haven't stopped.
Wait, are you at year 5 now then?
I'm 5.5 years in.
Right, so it's going
Yeah.
well. Yeah.
Yeah. I think I found my road to go down.
That's great.
But yeah, it was difficult coming to London, and I knew I wanted to learn the craft. That's what I wanted to uncover. I think a craft is a really important thing to have in life, and to really dedicate yourself to learning it properly. So obviously, growing up in a restaurant, I knew that the best way to go is from the ground up. And I found a really tiny kitchen in Stoke Newington called Rubedo. It was just myself and the head chef in the kitchen, like modern European food. And I was doing like the larder section as well as KPing, so doing the dishes. And it was just he and I for 11 months, and I learnt loads. And then after Rubedo, I made my way into a bigger kitchen, and I worked at Braun on Columbia Road, which again is very much described as sort of modern European Mediterranean. And Braun was super, it was tough, but it was very serious, you know. It really showed me the length of which you can go with cooking, and how much you have to apply yourself. And I learned the discipline, you know, which...
Was it a big team there?
Yeah, well, before COVID, yes. There was 12 of us, and I was the most junior. And then when COVID happened, basically overnight, we went from 12 down to 4 or 5, because everyone sort of went home. I went back to Braun after the COVID lockdown, and then when we came back from furlough, I sort of realized they needed someone a lot more experienced than where I was at, it was very difficult at the time to admit that to myself, that I wasn't yet at the stage of cooking, because chefing is a habit, it's a skill, and you only learn it over time.
How did you learn it? Because you said like it was hard to admit that I wasn't there yet. Like how, like were you sure it was not imposter syndrome? Like how did you really convince that you were not ready?
It was pretty obvious. I was struggling, you know. I was injuring myself because I was stressed. I was behind. Kitchens really show you where you're at in terms of skill level, because a really experienced chef who's got a lot of years under their belt will be able to handle all the various different pressures of a kitchen. But for me, it was really obvious that I wasn't there yet, because it was too much. And I really tried. I really tried for about 2 months to like work beyond my means a little bit. And it made itself quite clear that I wasn't at that stage of my career. So at that point, I went and worked at Tria, just around the corner, an Italian restaurant here in Islington, and that was at a position that was effectively more junior than where I was at Braun, because at Braun I was essentially trying to run a whole section. Yeah, it made itself very obvious.
And you felt better with that new position. You felt like, did you feel like you still had something to give, even though you were more comfortable in it?
Yeah, absolutely. It was still really hard. Like the difference between Braun and Tria, like Tria was very high volume. It was very fast paced. Braun was slightly smaller numbers in terms of covers, but the food maybe could be perceived as being a little bit more refined, whereas Tria is like slightly higher numbers, great food, just slightly more simple, which at the time I really needed. And I was there for about 2.5 years, and I really grew. That's where I started to like learn how to dance. You know, you learn the dance of it.
Dance in the kitchen, like you were saying, like juggling different things. And
yeah, because chefing, you know, it's so much more than cooking, and you learn that more and more as time goes on. And now that I own a business and I run a kitchen, and you realize all the different hats you have to wear, you have to put in those years of learning the craft.
How much of it is like managing the team, you know, like being close to them, like having the relationship with everybody else?
It's big. It's really big. Restaurants are about people as much as they are about food. And in the game, in the art of hospitality, which is that of taking care of people, you welcome guests into your space every day. As much as you have to take care of guests, you really have to take care of your people, because they're your most precious resource. You know, they're the people you're trusting to execute your vision. You're around each other like 50 hours a week, so if the vibe is bad, you know, it makes it really bad.
How was it for you? Because you know, obviously you moved around, but it looks like it was yourself moving around. Like you didn't bring a team with you. So when you recruited people for Tria, what were you looking for? Like as like first time, you know?
Yeah. Well, I was looking for people who seemed hungry for something that I didn't really know what it was going to look like. I had ideas, but I was looking for people who were experienced, who were balanced, and who would go with the flow, you know, who would, when you have any opening of a restaurant, there's so many different things going on. So you need people who are focused, but easygoing, you know. My sous chef, Alex, who's been with me from the start, he trialed for me. Well, after Tria, I was sous chef at Sager & Wild in Paradise Row in Bethnal Green. And Alex had trialed for us at Sager & Wild. So I knew him from that. And he just has a really amazing temperament and amazing attitude. He's also a hustler. You know, he works, I had seen him in trial, and I knew he worked really hard, and he had a keen eye for detail. Then the other chef who was with us at the start, who is not with us anymore, but is still very much part of the family and the team, she had loads of experience with Italian foods, loads of experience in pastry, which is not I'm not a dessert queen. So we had spoken from the very beginning about developing that together. I had a couple of ideas and recipes, but I needed help to bring them to life. So that was a big part of it. And I also just needed to find some staff, which is like always a massive problem in London, you know. Ever since COVID, ever since Brexit, we have in the hospitality industry faced enormous numbers of people leaving the industry. And
are some people, like some new people joining, or how is it? Because obviously we all read that from like the outside. You're
Yeah.
like, oh, the EU, you know, like me as an Italian, I was like, sure, every Italian I know that wants to come to London wanted to come before 2020,
Yeah.
wanted to come to work as a waiter for a season, you know, learn the
Yeah.
language, things like that. It's not possible anymore. But maybe now that things have settled, and they settled in a bad way, or
I definitely notice less chefs than there were when I first moved here. Like when I first moved here, it was still tough to enter into a kitchen. There's definitely more young people who are, you know, being drawn to the industry as well. But you see, I think it's hard to hold on to people. You know, it's, with the cost of living crisis and with wages being kind of what they are and the workload being what it is, it's a tough game. And I think that COVID especially showed a lot of chefs what it would be like to live without all the pressure and the stress and the intense schedules.
what was the alternative like?
Well, I think a lot of people have moved into different jobs in food, working for suppliers, working for like food ordering companies, people working in food PR, people going to magazines. Like you've seen a lot of movement around different parts of the industry, or people, you know, going to work in like the head office as well, head office of restaurants. But we're
Stepping
trying.
away,
Yeah. So that's why it's so important when it comes to managing a team and looking after your people. You know, it's really important to take care of them because there's not that many people around who want to do this for a living. It's
What's the impact? Because I know you were talking about, before we started recording, about sort of your experience with food, like with chefing and working in the kitchen and mental health. Like how, like if you know you're managing a team and you know they're struggling, like how much does it impact you? And like also,
it's a good question. Yeah, the way I like to lead is with a lot of empathy. I'm quite a warm person by nature, and I'm sensitive. So I can, if you look around, this is a tiny kitchen. So I have 3 guys in my team: Diogo, who's our prep chef and kitchen porter; Gennaro, who's our CDP; and Alex, my sous chef. I can tell when they're having a bad day. I can tell when they're not happy, when they're stressed. I like to have some hard conversations in a gentle way because everyone has struggles in their life, and when you are working a physical job that's also mentally really engaging and really, really taxing, it's important that your team are in a good place. So, you know, there's been bumps in the road, and I feel really proud of the way we've handled them, and I have tried to give support as well. Sometimes, like, it's not easy, you know, sometimes there's so much to do, and I guess I remember how it felt like when I was a CDP or a sous chef and I was going through difficulties and how difficult it was to do the job. So I'm not so far removed from that. So in this position of being the head chef, I like to approach it with a lot of heart. I'm a bit of a mama, probably in that respect, but it's really important, you know. Chefs go through a very roller coaster type of life every day just because of the nature of the job. So, you know, providing people with support and just also making it a space where it's like people feel comfortable to talk about, you know, if something's happening with family or whatever it is, you know, you can have that moment and you say, what's going on? Hey, how are you? Because like I said before, hospitality, it's a people game. It's a people game. You have to really, you have to be gentle and firm at the same time.
Yeah, it's true. And like I was reading another interview you gave for another magazine, because one is to do, it's got to do research. Where you were talking about this as well, and how sort of how sometimes, you know, being a woman chef and like the leader, a woman leader, you expect this empathetic approach.
Yeah.
And sometimes that can be difficult. That can just kind of come back at you because people don't take you seriously.
Yeah.
So I guess it has worked quite well here. Yeah.
I would say it's worked quite well. I mean, these guys are cooking next to me every day. You know, they see how hard I work. I see how hard they work. As much as I'm soft, I've got my toughness. I've got my grit. You know, I can handle a hell of a lot. And I think that amongst chefs, there's a sort of knowing, you know, where like you spend enough time together. Well, first of all, I don't think I would have people in my kitchen who wouldn't respect me. And I've been very, very lucky. Everyone who's been a part of Tiela's team from the very start have given so much to my business and so much to me as well as a person. And it's been an amazing process. In previous teams where I wasn't, to be honest, every senior management position I've had, I never felt like my respect was not given or challenged. Sometimes, you know, if you work with like agency staff, you know, people who come in for a day and help you on the pot wash or whatever, and they don't know who you are, I've had experiences of people being a bit strange with having a woman tell them what to do. I'm very lucky. I grew up from a very young age seeing a woman as a leader. I would say my mum had much more challenges than I do. And I very much learned what not to do. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like I learned like she had so many difficulties that I learned, you know, that's not how I want to go about things. Should I drop this pasta? Why not?
Yeah.
Why don't I talk about the
Let's
dish
talk
a little
about the
bit?
dish.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah. It just softened the conversation a little bit.
So Ciceri Tria, the way I ate it growing up was quite similar to this, where it's quite creamy and you have a mixture. So what you do is you take dried chickpeas, you soak them overnight, then you bring them to the boil, you skim off all the scum. And then what I've added in here is very, very simple stock veg. Sofrito vegetables, carrot, celery, onion. I add a little bit of garlic, a big bouquet garni of rosemary, very heavy on the rosemary, some bay and some thyme. You cook the chickpeas till they're really, really soft, but still with a bit of texture. Olive oil in there as well. When I cook them, I don't add salt because that makes the chickpea kind of seize up. And when it comes to seasoning pulses that you're cooking from dry, you do that at the very end. Then once they're cooked, you blend a third of the chickpea along with all the vegetables. That makes this kind of like creamy sauce, which I really like. This version is kind of one that I've like made from memory, you know. I've got my mum's recipe. Actually, I've got her cookbook. I could show you as well. This is probably a bit thicker than how she does it. I've had versions which are a little bit more soupy.
Mm-hmm.
This is just my preference. I quite like the saucy element. It makes it really silky and smooth and delicious. I find the creamy base of the dish makes it a nice texture. So yeah, that's what I've got going on here. Then we've got our fried pasta. And then this is our tagliatelle, which is just made from durum wheat, semolina, and water.
Yeah.
And just a lot of muscle.
Do you make pasta here?
Yeah. Well, as you can see, this is all about space in terms of like bench space. So my first weekend in the pub, I made sanyen canulate, which are a twisted hand-rolled type of... That's like a twisted pappardelle, very typical of Puglia. And it was like just not possible. Kitchens tell you what you can cook. So this being our kitchen, I came into Tiella with like all these ideas. We're going to do racchette, gnocchi, ravioli, but you have to make decisions that work with your space.
Yeah.
So obviously we have very limited storage. We have very limited prep space. We also, this is our menu. So this is from Saturday, and you can see there's like a fair few things on there. There is one other pasta, but I've had to learn to actually use dry pasta as well, which is very typical of Italian restaurants. Some sauces work better with dry pasta, but the reason behind that is that when it comes to the production of our food, which is going to meet the demands that we have in the pub,
It's too much.
you gotta be smart.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it is too much. So what I'm going to do is just crank the heat a little bit on here. This pasta cooks quite quickly. To be honest, I cook it for a minute.
Great. All right.
Yeah.
So I need to ask you a quick question that has no sentimental,
Absolutely.
that doesn't have to be a sentimental response, but I guess like another thing I want to talk to you about, because I always do this thing where I walk in, I do an intro, I'm like, oh, I want to talk about this and that, and then I never ask this stuff. So
Yeah.
now I remember. How is it to serve Italian food in a pub, or like specifically not Italian food, because that doesn't mean anything, but like food from Puglia that you grew up with, like something very homey to you.
Yeah.
In a British pub.
So I heard something on a podcast like 5 years ago, an amazing food writer called Rachel Roddy, who's based in Rome, British, but has lived most of her life in Italy. And she said, what a trattoria is to Italy is what a pub is to the UK. And I never ever forgot that. I remembered that from when I was cooking in people's restaurants. And the thing with pubs is that they're really comfortable. They're really similar to being in someone's home. And ultimately they're places where a lot of British society just unwinds and relaxes. And to be honest, that was something for me that was really clear as being quite a perfect environment for Italian food. I had my suspicions. I'm a very instinctive person, and I just felt in my gut that it would kind of work. Oops, I just dropped some pasta out of my mouth. That is not glamorous. So I had a hunch, and it turned out that the hunch was right.
Yeah.
You know, London was also very used to eating Italian food. You have some amazing Italian food in London. And my sister always laughs at me. She's like, that's not true. She lives in Bologna. So she's like, it can't be.
It's true. I 100% agree with that. I think maybe just my friends, they're not great at choosing restaurants, but every time I eat out in Bari, I'm always a bit disappointed.
No, I had this, I had the same experience when I went to Puglia last, about 4 years ago. And I really struggled to find a good place to eat out. Obviously the produce is amazing, but the quality of the food was not outstanding. So what I've done here is I've added a bit more salt and quite a lot of pepper. This is one recipe that you do see a healthy amount of black pepper used. And then I've added a bit more olive oil, a bit more pasta water. And this is my little secret ingredient, I guess you'd say. This is Muscatel vinegar. So white wine vinegar made with Muscatel grapes. And I just add a little bit to it. And that just provides a bit of acidity, a bit of sweetness as well, which I find balances out the vegetable flavors, the chickpea flavors. What I do is I get a bit of the fried pasta and I always toss it through.
Oh.
So then this one gets coated in the sauce, and I can see now it's starting to come together, so I'm going to add a little bit more water.
Smells amazing.
Yeah. It's one of my favorite foods, you know.
It's one of the regulars as well in the menu, right?
Yeah, I've taken it off. I usually have it on in the colder months because it's something that works really well in winter.
Yeah. Well, you've been lucky this year because we haven't had a summer, so.
Don't get me started. Little final salt. When you have dishes that are so simple, if you don't have all the elements kind of right, you know, seasoning, acidity, then you'll struggle to get the most out of the dish. And that's basically it.
No.
Then you're just on plating. So yeah, I've seen versions that are way more brothy, which is beautiful, and I think both really work. This is just something, this version I kind of enjoy. Chickpeas.
Yeah, and then it has like a very nice color as well.
Yeah.
'Cause I think pasta with chickpeas can have maybe not a great appeal when you don't see the vegetable.
Yeah. Well, I
Yeah.
think that's it. Sometimes the ones that are a bit more brothy, I suspect the vegetables haven't been pureed.
Yeah.
Which is fantastic. But for me, I quite like the veggie element. Then I usually top with a little bit more pasta. I just think it looks so elegant.
Yeah.
It's pretty. Now, this is totally a preference thing. I really like mine with a little bit of chili.
Okay.
But again, would you like some picante or not?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Sure.
This is Calabrian chili paste with a little bit of oil. My mum at her restaurant she would make a chili and rosemary oil, which is really nice
Wow.
for it as well. But I used quite a lot of rosemary in the cooking, so I didn't add any more.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Yeah.
oh,
Well, it
actually,
looks amazing. Oh. All right.
one more. Just a tiny touch of olive oil. So the top.
Yeah, but I mean, I said like I've come here, you know, as a customer. That's something I always loved about the cooking. It's just like how like authentic it is, and yeah, you're like, let me add a bit of that, a bit of like Calabrian chili oil. Like,
Yeah.
it's just so nice to see like tradition, but like really interpreted by like what that means to you versus what it
Yeah.
should be because it comes from a certain region, a certain
Yeah.
country. It feels like your life is in there.
That
Like,
makes me really
yeah.
happy. I really appreciate that you said that. Yeah, it's
I know. It's but it's, I don't know. But I mean, just by looking at it, I feel at home.
good.
I think.
Oh,
Yeah.
do you know what? That's
So,
like the
yeah.
best compliment when Italians come to eat and they say that. That makes me really
Yeah.
happy.
Yeah.
I just.
But I mean, to be honest, like a lot of Italians know nothing about food. So,
yeah.
It's
yeah.
it's also very dangerous, I think.
Yeah, do you know what? I think the whole time I've been cooking here at the pub, I haven't been like thinking, oh, you know, this is for so-and-so, this is for so-and-so. I'm genuinely just showing the food that I have in my memory of my mother and her restaurant and my heritage, but also combined with all the knowledge and wisdom I've received as a chef in my experience, because there's a lot of good things that I learned in London kitchens. So it's a combination of the two.
Wow.
Yeah. Easy. We could go outside and
Yeah, should we
eat
try
it.
it?
Yeah.
Thanks so much for like your welcome and for having me here
Pleasure.
today. I know this is like a new journey for me as well. So like in a way, even though I mean I cook at home, but I'm not a chef and I have
Yeah.
another career. Like I feel inspired by by your journey and like things what you said. Like even when you said, "Oh, I felt that spark when my mom also retired and I was there with her, and being with her gave me the strength to start something new."
Yeah.
Well, my mom just retired, so I think we're gonna try and do something. But
it's supporting supporting my mum as she gets older is something that's like my dream is to buy a house in Puglia for her. So everything I'm doing.
Where's she now?
She's still in New Zealand. And I haven't seen her for quite a few years because obviously COVID and around chefing, it's really hard to get a lot of time off. But genuinely, it sounds really cheesy when I say it out loud, but it's genuinely quite truthful. What I'm trying to build is so that I can give her something back from all those years she gave to me as a mother who was also a restaurateur. Because I understand my mum now, shush, more than ever before. So it does sound cheesy, but most of what I do at Tiella is like a love letter to my mum. Just to say thank you for like leading the way. And what's coming next for Tiella, so watch this space, is all for my mum. So she's my she's amazing.
That's great. Yeah. Also leading the way, giving you your like the chance to find your own little side alleys.
Yeah.
That's very nice.
I got it from my mama for sure. All right.
Thank you so much for your time.
Pleasure.
It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much. Great. Yay.
Yeah. Well, what to say? That was such a wonderful soul to meet. I just feel so grateful and so happy to be honest to have the chance to speak to Dara. Like she was so honest and open and also very relatable. I don't know, I just felt really inspired by everything she said, talking about her journey and how, being close to her mom helped her sort of decide that she wanted to turn her career and take that step forward. I think that's very important and just very meaningful as well to experience and just, I mean, like you could travel far, far away and then just get inspired by something that's always been that close to you that maybe you never noticed, and it feels like that's what happened with her. Did lots of experiences, but eventually to find that inspiration again, she had to be with her mom, and that was sort of the highlights of everything, and that's what got everything started. Yeah, I think I'm rambling, but what I mean to say is that it was amazing. I'll surely be back, bring my family as well for some Ciceri Tria. That was wonderful. But yeah, I feel like that's what I want to do with this series, just bring in a bit more of the people, some food, but really a bit more of the people and just what food has meant for them in their life and how that has shaped it. And I think food has meant a lot for Dara, and just sort of led her to here, from Puglia to New Zealand to London. It's just a matter, it's just a matter of a few dishes. I really enjoyed talking to her, if you can tell. It was very nice. Thank you so much for watching again one more time. I'll see you in the next episode. Bye bye.